All right. You gotta quit making noise. Go on mute. All right. Here we go. You are listening to the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast, episode 256. Yay.
Welcome to season 6, episode. Let me get this right. 100000000 in binary. Also sometimes referred to as 256 in base of the Furlo Bros Tech Podcast. Today is August the 14th. No. 21st, 2016. I'm Matthew Dean Furlo, and having been around for at least 30 years of my life is my brother James Furlo.
Yeah, that's right. You had a birthday this weekend. Happy birthday. You're the big 3-0. How's it feel to have entered a new decade? Do you feel old and decrepit and like a Luddite now?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm tired of all these kids and their apps.
Their Pokemon Goes.
That's exactly. Their Snaps chat.
Snaps chats. The Googles.
Yeah,
Wait,
exactly.
that's pretty old too, actually, now.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And had a date, which we may or may not talk about later. I don't even know if it rose through our the ranks. It did not. Sweet.
It's so painful. I don't even want to. Yeah, this is one of our last episodes on Google Hangouts.
Yay! We'll be doing Google Duo from now on. Oh wait, no, we won't. No, anybody won't.
Yeah, right. It's just, oh gosh.
It's all right. So 30. Did you do anything fun?
I did. I went to Boston for a week.
Well, there you go.
Actually, I'm doing a couple of different things. I'm not the sort of person that's like, your birthday should last the whole month. I just kind of accidentally stumbled into it this year that I'm doing that. So we went to Boston just for fun, to visit the city, see the places, do the things. It's actually really cool because it's like there's so much history going on in that city. You just accidentally stumble upon
what happened
stuff.
in Boston. Red Sox. That's all I really know. We
did get to see the Red Sox, but it's like one of the.
Is that where they? Is the Liberty Bell there?
No, that's Philadelphia.
Okay. So, is that where the first settlement was?
No, that's Plymouth Rock.
Okay.
Jamestown is the oldest living one. I'll give you a hint. So one of the nights we walked into a bar and had a beer there called the pub was called the Green Dragon. And
the Green Dragon.
We didn't realize the significance of drinking at the Green Dragon until a couple of days later when we found out Paul Revere, who lived in Boston, was drinking at the Green Dragon with a bunch of other guys one night, complaining about taxation without representation.
Naturally, because that's what you do.
Exactly, and decided to take the couple of blocks walk from the Green Dragon down to the harbor.
He was slightly inebriated.
Exactly, dressed in Indian costumes and take a bunch of tea and throw it into the.
I thought that was going to be his ride. No, that was interesting.
Yeah, it was
Tea party moment.
It was, the literal tea party. Yeah, so that was the Boston Tea Party. We did get to go to the Old North Church, where one if by land, two if by sea.
Oh, and the lantern was lit.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool seeing places with all that history.
Yeah, it was really neat.
Anyone in Europe listening to this is like,
yeah, history. It was like last year. I know. We got to go to the Bunker Hill Monument. Which for those of you who don't remember, it's don't fire till you see the whites of their eyes. Which actually was really kind of a surreal moment because we were standing there, and Bunker Hill is not a very big hill, and you can kind of see the harbor and stuff. And we'd been walking around. They have a giant monument there now. We've been walking around and like just kind of seeing everything. And at some point I kind of stopped our little group, my girlfriend and her cousin, and I was like, just look around. Look at the people around you. and try to see the whites of their eyes. Like, how close do they have to be before you can see the white in the corners of their eyes? And it's like they have to be close, like really, really uncomfortably close
Huh.
before you can actually see that. And you can see the harbor off in the distance where the British ships had been docked and were bombarding Bunker Hill. And you could see and just trying to imagine like being there. They dug out a bunch of like trenches and stuff, built a quote earthen fort that they're just hunkering down as the battleships are bombarding their position, as over 2,000 British troops are marching up this little hill towards them, and they're just sitting there waiting, knowing that they don't have 2,000 bullets.
Kind of reminds me of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where the riders coming, and coming, and coming, and coming.
Yeah.
Just sitting there waiting.
Just sitting there waiting, and then finally,
that's got to do wonders for your psyche.
And then when they finally get there, it's like, just because you have fewer bullets than troops, you got to do as much damage as you can. It's your only hope. So you just stood there and waited until they were so close, like a dozen feet from you, guns like loaded and firing, and they popped up over the mountain and started shooting.
You know what they needed? They needed some elves with some sick bow and arrow skills.
Yeah, right. Yeah. See, the crazy, and it's funny because I was just like, it was really, I don't know, it was really impactful, just kind of standing there trying to imagine it. And then, and we went across the street to this museum memorial thing that they have across the street, and they had a painting of the scene at the top of Bunker Hill, and there's a guy who's like falling down, like he's being shot, and his jacket is torn back, and he's got on a shirt, and painted on his shirt it says "Live Free or Die," and he's just like, yeah, exactly. I was like, chills.
Then did someone spray paint in the word "hard" just after it?
Right. But it was, I don't know, it was pretty impactful. There was a lot of stuff like that where you're just like, oh, this is really cool. I can get into this. And also at the same time, we had the Olympics going on, which was great. Being able to watch Usain Bolt
in almost real time
be a monster. Yeah,
he's pretty fast.
Yeah, he's pretty fast, I'd say. Did you see the qualifying 200-meter dash for him?
Where he walked the last 50 meters?
Yeah, but the Canadian trying just all out as hard as he could, trying to get him in the last couple of steps.
So
that he could
reading about that,
once.
It sounds like that was actually a pretty dumb move on his part, other than he would have been able to say he beat him. But because they were like, it totally hoses him for the next race.
Oh yeah,
because he builds up too much lactic acid and whatever.
Oh,
like, and he's like, he already had it. He didn't have to do that. But
it was a horrible idea, except that he would have been able to say he had beat Usain Bolt once, which, like, I'm gonna say, there's a part of me that's like, if I could beat Usain Bolt in a race, even if it's a qualifying race and everybody knows he's not trying as hard as he can, but for the rest of you, you're not gonna get gold. Right. Right. You might as well. It's almost a bigger achievement. And the best part was Usain Bolt, like, seen him out of the corner of his eye in the last couple of steps. And they have some great shots where they're tracking along with Bolt and the Canadians coming up right up to him. Usain Bolt looks over his shoulder, and like as he crosses the finish line, like an inch before the Canadian, he just wags his finger at him like, no, you don't. It's great. It was great. I don't know. I love it.
Yeah. And then he made sure it wasn't even close in the final.
I know.
That was ridiculous.
And he was upset at the end of it because, as he described it,
he did not set a world record.
Yeah. Well, as he described it, it was the first time in his life that he had asked his body for more, and his body said no. And you're like, oh, age. He's so old now. He can't. He's decrepit. Not decrepit. He's decrepit, old and broken. He's 4 days younger than me.
He's Google.
I feel really bad about me.
Is he really?
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
He had a birthday recently too.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday.
Okay.
But very cool. Wow.
How does that make you feel? That always, like, I try not to think about it too much.
Well, he's a freak of nature that nobody's ever been as fast as or ever will be. So it's easier to deal with. Like, I know he's the same age as me, but it's not like, well, if I tried 30, harder.
He's 30?
Yep.
That's ridiculous.
I know.
okay.
Just knowing that it's not like I could have tried harder and been in his league helps me deal with the fact that he's a multi-millionaire, fastest man on earth.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually reading some or listening, maybe listening. I think I've done more listening than reading lately. But anyways, they were saying that a lot of the athletes now are a lot older than they used to be in the past. And there's comments about him like, oh, he's so old, and Michael Phelps, oh, he's so old. And one of the comments was, we've finally figured out a way to it's gonna sound really weird, for athletes to monetize their skill so that they can continue to be athletes longer. As opposed to, it used to be like, well, I'm out of college, I have to get a job, and you just can't train like you used to, and so therefore you're not as good of an athlete and you drop off the map just like normal. But now, like, it's a legitimate career, which is pretty crazy that that's the privileged point that we're in now. And that's just kind of like, I don't know, you don't think about the sports arena, but it's just like a lot of the tech companies, and this is me attempting to bring it back.
I appreciate that.
Like, no, if you can figure out how to monetize, you can hang around for a long time and do some really cool, amazing things. And they're doing it physically right now. And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
Which, by the way, happens to be what we're talking about this week, like we talk about every week, which is the technology and the continuing corporate opera, not sports, not birthdays, not Boston, but the soap opera of corporations' dealings back and forth, the people working for them, their marketing campaigns, and of course, the technology they're developing. But before we get into the heart of the show, James has got a short disclosure he's got to throw our way.
It is a little bit like we're talking history, if you think about it. It's
just short
really
history.
Short history. Yeah. Anyways, I founded and work for HPI. However, I do not represent HPI or any of Hewlett Packard Inc.'s opinions. I also own part of Twitter, Etsy, and Lending Club, which continues to have troubles.
Yeah, it happens.
Just yesterday, so apparently I learned this, that Lending Club, like, they publish all of the data of their borrowers online in like Excel format. It's all, they leave off the name or whatever, but it's like, you can go onto their website. I don't know how to do this, but you can go on their website and download all their data. It's part of their open and transparency nature of it. And so it's funny, there was this guy who, he was like, oh, this is kind of cool, I'd be interested to do it. And so he grabbed the data for his particular loans, and he noticed this one person lived in the same area, happened to have the same job, and made very similar incomes. And it was like, that's interesting. And he posited, he doesn't know for sure, but he was like, I'm pretty sure this is the same guy. And what was interesting, he said they had different interest rates, but they were both active at the same time. Because what caught his attention was, in one of the earnings calls, they said that multiple borrowers, like 40% of their borrowers, go back for a second loan. And they made it sound like you pay off your loan and then you get a second one. And he was like, no, this guy has two loans at the same time. He's going back, but it's a little different. And what's super interesting too is he had done some data research and found 32 loans where he was like, these ones are really weird. They're different than all the others. Where through he had this idea of saying, maybe there are people who are the same person getting out different loan amounts for different interest rates. Could he identify who those are and then just do the one with the higher interest rate?
Right.
And kind of double down on it, because somewhere the credit thing. So, and it was kind of his idea was to have a company that could help filter that out and kind of be a layer on top of it. But in that process, he found 32 loans that were really weird. Like, he was like, there was 4 people in the span of like 8 days. And he goes, and I think it's just 4 borrowers, because they each had very similar information. He was like, but each time just one thing was changed. And that was it. It was like, and when you put them all together, you went, oh yeah, totally the same person. And they were all for similar types of loan reasons. He was like, these 4 people took out 32 loans for almost $1 million over an 8-day time period. And he was like posing to be different people. And this was like in December that he saw this. And it was earlier this year, so after that had happened, when I actually bought Lending Club, because the CEO was ousted for doing insider lending stuff. And it turned out those were the loans where that happened.
Whoa.
And this guy Because they said, yeah, we there were 32 irregular loans, and it was the ones where he saw them and was like, yeah, there's something funky about these. I don't understand them, and had flagged them. And he wasn't the one who whistle blew on them because he didn't know what he was looking at. But he was like, yeah, it was. You could see it that something was weird about it.
That's crazy.
So anyway, so I own that.
That's awesome. That's very cool. I still own Skull Candy. I think I'm not sure. I do. At this point, I'm not exactly sure what's going on there.
You're afraid to open the app just to find out.
Pretty much, yeah.
Just gonna let this one
it's
ride.
$5.
What you don't want is some like auto pop up where it's like yes or no. Like no, quit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Turn off the internet.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So real quick, we got a comment this week on one of our videos. It's Mutation 666 is the name. And essentially he was giving us some suggestions. Just thought I'd share some of them. Number one, he thinks you need a new webcam. Just put it out there. Or me. I don't know. He didn't really say. I'm going to go with my lighting because in my new place, it's kind of messed up. So
yeah, you gotta get them Philip Hughes, man.
Oh, I know. Actually, I'm going to rotate my desk. I think that'll make a difference.
Yeah,
but
probably.
I do need something over the desk. I'm feeling that. He also suggests we do a little more editing, which thanks Mutation 666.
Yeah.
And likes our stuff. He says, keep it going. So there you go.
Nice. I appreciate that.
He's got a couple other like technical things in there, but
I'm gonna say
just wanted to share.
We recognize the value of editing. It's not that we don't think we need it. It's that we don't have time for it. And there's not a great, as we haven't monetized this yet. It's hard, but yeah. I get it. We appreciate the feedback every time. If you want to give us feedback, feel free to. You can feedback me at Matthew D. Furlo on Twitter, or check out my photos from Boston on Instagram. My feed handle thing is NextWiggin4, NEXTWIGGIN, and the number 4.
James Furlo on Twitter.com, on Instagram. I started using the stories thing a little bit.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's all right. Don't hate it.
Today I took a picture of a sign that said, please pick up your dog poop. I don't know. I don't think it said poop. It probably said like dog excrement, refuse, leavings, whatever. I could probably look at my picture and find out. And literally right under the sign, pile of dog poop.
That's pretty funny.
Like, that's perfect. So,
a little bit of civil disobedience right there.
Instagram worthy, but I was like, it's stories worthy.
Gotcha.
Like,
yeah.
So, anyways,
I have a hard time deciding if it doesn't raise to the level of a picture. I don't know. This tells you how old I am.
I automatically share my Instagram photos to Facebook.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if I don't want it on Facebook, it's going to a story, which I didn't really want that one on Facebook. Whereas the super cute picture I took of my daughter in a tree, it's like, that's going everywhere.
That's interesting because I do make that differentiation. I do sometimes put stuff just on Instagram and not on the Facebook. Huh.
99% of the time, I'm doing both.
Fascinating.
Which now that I have stories, it will probably be 100% of the time.
But you know where we'll put 100% of our effort into, James? Furlobros.com. Everything we're going to talk about today, all the articles, clicks, links, videos, audio clips, anything like that, you can go to furlobros.com. It's there. Check it out. It's awesome. Yeah, we like it. But
cool.
That's our deal.
You know what we don't like?
What?
Dumb things to do with your smartphone. So I saw this fun article. It's 11 of them, to be specific. Things that you do with your smartphone.
I hope I don't do them.
Just want to make sure. Shutting down all the apps running in the background. Apparently, you're not supposed to do that. Or you don't have to do that.
I know
feel
people
good when I do it, though.
I know people that like are flabbergasted when they see that my phone has like 50 apps open, and they're like, "How does your phone run normally?" And I was like, you do realize that little icon that you're flipping up and quote unquote deleting, all it's doing is literally deleting that picture that's saved as a picture in your phone, in your RAM, that you're deleting when you
So what's
swipe
the
up.
point of that then?
What it
That's
does
really all
to
that it is.
it does two things. Number one, it forces a call to be made that all apps make when they first get open, and I think it's app will start up. Like it restarts you. There's a loop that all apps are on that they get frozen, and depending on what state they get frozen in, they'll stop, and you're basically restarting the loop, but you're not clearing RAM. So if the app is acting weird, you can do that, and sometimes it'll reset the loop, and we'll reset the logic. But mostly it's there to make you feel good.
Oh.
Honestly,
well, that's working.
Yeah, you know.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Next one: drain the battery to 0 as soon as you get your phone.
You're not supposed to do that.
Like the idea is that swimming within an hour of eating means you'll cramp up and die. Sitting too close to the TV will ruin your eyesight. Or 9/11 wasn't an inside job. We'll probably have this myth with us forever. It's like, wait. Did he?
Yeah.
I don't know how to take this now. But yeah, so apparently back when there were older nickel cadmium or nickel metal hydrate batteries, those were the ones that would forget a charge, and so you constantly wanted to, or not constantly, but regularly take it to 0 and all the way up, then not all the time. But now with lithium ion, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
So stop doing that. I love this one. Buying a screen protector. I don't get screen protectors. You don't have one on your phone, right?
Heck no.
Yeah, they're like, it's garbage. They're like, the glass is so strong now that it's actually, you will get less scratches because the stupid little screen protector scratches really easily.
Yeah, it'd be like putting a scratch detector on your diamond ring. Why would you do that?
Which, by the way, he said that's pretty much the only thing you shouldn't put in your pocket with your phone.
Yeah.
But outside of that, you're good to go.
Sapphire and diamonds are at this point pretty much the only thing that it can scratch a screen. Outside of that, obviously they can be brittle, but you know, brittle. Your screen protector is not going to help save it from a blow to its face. It's only there to protect it from scratches.
Makes sense. Never use a third-party charger. I don't know. You weren't supposed to not do that.
Well, there was a while there where like the iPhone would yell at you for using a third-party charger.
Oh.
And then because they wanted to make sure that it was a certified one so that it wouldn't damage the iPhone because it wasn't delivering too much power or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then they finally just built the circuitry into the iPhone that's like, just check if it's, going to work or not. And then it will yell at you if it's getting a dangerous charge, and it will tell you to like, we're not charging with this, unplug the wire. And but yeah, those like cheap ones, if it doesn't do anything wrong, you're fine.
How about this one? Being on an upgrade plan. Apparently they say that's a dumb thing to do. Best bet, financially speaking, buy the phone outright.
Yes.
And even if you buy a new one every year and resell the old one, they're like, it's still cheaper to do that than to do the upgrade program. Yep. But the upgrade program is so convenient.
I know. And it gets you on that monthly plan so you can be financed for the rest of your life, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
For everybody else, not you.
Cash up front.
It's terrible, but yeah, no, I mean, honestly, anybody who like thinks, oh, I'll find.
What if your phone gets broken or something? Then what do you do?
Apple Care Plus.
Do you get that too?
Yeah, well, I do. Yeah, obviously.
Okay. All right. All right.
But I'm an idiot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nah. Got it. Thinking that a massive battery alone will give you days without a charge. I thought this was actually interesting. So battery improvements are pretty slow.
Right.
And so a lot of times you'll read about the sizes of the battery and go, oh, it's got a bigger number, so therefore it must be better. It's like, well, not necessarily. The biggest thing actually that improves battery life is software optimization.
Right.
And so, which I don't know how you test for that, but it's like, just don't blindly choose biggest battery.
So this is related. I didn't think it deserved an entire article because it's lab tests, but MIT claims they had a huge breakthrough that they announced earlier this week that they can double the capacity of a lithium ion battery. and they think that it would be commercializable by the end of 2017, which is nuts if that's true.
Wow.
Because a lot of times, like, you'll get these improvements, and like, we can improve the battery by 10%, but it requires like a completely new way of manufacturing the battery. So you'll have to spend $1 billion on this new factory and get a small, like, it's not a big enough improvement.
Yeah.
Whereas a doubling is a big enough improvement to justify a $1 billion factory. So hopefully that's true. But
okay.
that'll
The
make
other
a
thing
difference.
is thinking how many megapixels on your phone camera matters.
Yeah,
Wow, I destroyed that sentence, but you know what I mean.
I gotcha.
So he's saying, honestly, as long as you have at least 12 megapixels, you're probably pretty good. It's
Well,
probably fine.
I kind of got into the megapixel, like, oh, megapixels matter a lot, until I realized that DSLR is oftentimes like not your like super modern ones, but ones that are like even 5 years old, but they were like the highest end cameras at the time. And 5 years ago, they were already selling 12 megapixel phone cameras, but the DSLRs had 8 megapixel lenses on them, but it was all about the like the actual megapixel size and like the lens type and stuff. There's so much that goes into a good picture other than just the number of pixels. And 12 megapixels is kind of like your bar for high resolution photos at this point. But
I like this one. You're avoiding Android phones because they're full of malware. Like, no, you're fine.
It's true.
I agree.
I mean, it's true-ish.
I agree.
There's more. You can open yourself up to a lot more with Android, but it's not nearly as bad as everybody makes it sound.
And there are certain benefits, like customizations, that outweigh it. Having a dark background or reading when text on black saves your battery.
Who thinks that?
I don't know. They had to come up with an article. Okay.
Yeah.
Alone. And then I thought this was interesting. Turning off Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or location services to save your battery. It's like just don't use those apps, and those different features aren't used. To which I was like, yeah, but
that's not true.
It stops me from accidentally using it. And what about someone like me, where I always have reminders set based on location?
I was gonna say, the thing is, like, unless you're somebody who uses apps that are constant, like, because if you can have apps that use location services while you're using the app, but there's also apps like what's it called? A great example is like setting up a reminder that works on a perimeter. Every time I get to work, remind me to turn on the lights. I don't know, whatever. Like, that constantly runs in the background, and I have location services constantly running. If I flip that switch to turn off location services, then all of those processes that are constantly running, like, it has a one thread that's doing location services that's pushing updates to all of the apps that are asking for it. So it's not like, doing it, but like, you have to turn it off in order for it to not be doing that. I get what they're saying, but that's, especially on the iPhone, that's just not true.
Seems like a technicality. Yeah. I agree. Not charging your phone overnight to avoid overcharging it. We talked about that last week or 2 weeks ago, where the phones are now good enough that they figured out how to do it, how to avoid that. And then finally, thinking that freezing your phone will help your battery. Just don't do that. It's not good for your phone.
Seems like a real bad idea.
So there you go. You're welcome.
Interesting. That's fascinating. There was something for everybody there. Or not. I don't know. So do you ever go to the McDonald's?
Yeah, regularly. I just yesterday got a free medium fries because I went to a baseball game. So nice. I visited, and I may have picked up some other food while there.
They're doing Gilroy garlic fries in California right now. I don't know if they're doing it everywhere. I haven't gotten them yet. I'm like, I gotta do it. I just gotta do it. Maybe after my marathon next week. I'm gonna be so obnoxious. Now that I'm coming up to it, I'm gonna be like, yeah, man, this reminds me of my marathon all the time. But have you introduced your daughter to the wonderful world of Happy Meals?
Yeah. She loves fries just as much as her dog.
Who doesn't? So whether they're good for you or bad for you, they're delicious. So McDonald's has decided that, kind of in honor of the Olympics and healthy living, and just sort of as a trying to not have themselves branded as a horrible place, they're going to give out toys that are health trackers. So
Really?
little wristbound health trackers, yeah. And for the next 4 weeks, you can get them where you strap them onto your wrist, and they'll have like little LED indicators that will tell you when you're doing activity, which totally makes sense because it kind of gamifies the whole thing for kids, which is kind of cool, and encourages them to get out and burn off those calories that they just ate. And it seems like a cool little. Oh wait, sorry, let me correct that. No, they're not giving those out anymore because they cause rashes.
Oh, gee.
Yeah, like 2 days later, it was like, yeah. So they're like, we'll figure something else out about that. Yeah, McDonald's Happy Meal might be beloved for including their toys, but the food inside is just as unhealthy as most menus. Golden Arch, blah 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 blah.
That's tough.
Yeah, unfortunately, reports of possible skin irritations prompted the chain to end the promotion early. 2 days later, instead of handing out the pedometers until the international games ceased for their 4-week run, McDonald's will hand out a substitute toy while they investigate the potential dermal abrasions. And
wow.
Franchise gave no further details. Bummer.
Oops.
Yep.
I applied the efforts to get all techie and see the current trend and get kids on it, but oops.
Yep. Just so close.
That hurts.
So close, McDonald's. Yeah, it's funny because it's hilarious too because you're like, McDonald's is kind of, I mean, come on, supersize me. Like the whole deal is we make really yummy but unhealthy food. Your burgers don't taste like anything anybody's ever eaten in all of human history, but they're delicious. So I'm okay with it. But they really don't like. It's funny because I've heard the question asked, why don't they just embrace look, we make delicious food that's bad for you. Just come here when you're in the mood for that. Like a donut store or whatever. But they really try to push this whole, no, we're not super bad for you. You can have your kids eat here.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get it. They see the trends.
Yeah.
And your price argument only goes so far.
Yeah. I think it's got that. I think it's got a bit of the feel of they just don't want to be, if they can do anything to sort of edge away from being that place, just do something, anything to not be the supersize me corporation,
I wonder what the lead time is for their Happy Meals. It's like, did they come up with that 2 weeks ago and come up with a prototype and roll it out to the world? Or is this something that they've been working on for 2 years? Like you think about another company's product life cycle. Example, HP, printers are in development for 3 years. Cartridges are in development for 5 years. Which I fully recognize are a little bit more complicated than a kid's health tracker.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? It's in development for a while.
I'll bet they have you would find that they have a surprisingly long lead time on all of this stuff.
There's got to be a team, right? Well, that's their job.
Oh yeah,
Happy Meal toys.
Well, it's there's an entire planning team for making sure that you're lining up your different cross promotional things. That you got your Marvel toys in time for Avengers and everything. And I gotta believe that.
I guess that's true. They're working with all those partnerships and figuring out revenue splits and whatever.
Because this was a big Olympics thing, so it's not like you can't just. You got to work with NBC on that. You've known for 4 years that it was coming. I wouldn't be surprised at all if you'd find that these are if every toy is a year in the making, at least. I would be very surprised, especially just from a tooling up to manufacture whatever they're building and building up supply, delivering it to every McDonald's in whatever area they're doing. And each region has their own team that does Happy Meal stuff. Mm-hmm. I'll bet that the Happy Meal toy would be an impressive company in and of itself if it wasn't part of McDonald's.
Yeah, probably a huge operation. Yeah, you're probably right. I was there recently, and I saw their soda machine thing for the drive-thru.
Oh yeah, they're awesome.
Dude, it's ridiculous. It actually has
Super.
like a little arm that grabs the cup, puts it in, moves it over, does the ice automatically, fills up it with the drink automatically, and then
Well,
all I gotta do is put the lid on.
and the greatest part about it is you can say, "Hey, can I get light ice on that?" And they have a button for light ice, and
That's
it
so
puts light
awesome.
ice in it. Like it's great. It's like it's there. It's oh gosh, yeah. That automation is so fantastic. And the best part about it is like a lot of they found that it was cheaper and easier for really busy locations to feed into a centralized call station. So like if you're going to a really busy McDonald's, they have you're not talking to somebody in the restaurant. You're talking to somebody in the next state over who's part of a giant call
I could
center
see
where they're
that.
all very highly trained for
Interesting.
that specific job, and then they type that all into the menu that gets associated with a picture of your car that gets pushed to the restaurant just makes it.
Hmm.
The soda machine makes the soda at the right time for the right car. It's crazy how automated the drive-through is at the McDaniels. It's good stuff. I like it.
That's the impressive part about their company, how
Oh
they're able to
yeah,
do all that.
and it's inevitable that because they've already done so much automation on that front. Like the idea that they aren't going to someday build a robotic burger flipper fry maker. That this whole thing's not just going to be a
I wonder if
automated
they're
wonderland.
experimenting with like uh, genetically created foods. Like, what if we didn't grow the cows or the potatoes, or something? I just wonder
3D
sometimes.
printed potato fries.
Think about it. Somewhere someone's doing some sort of experiments, and
Well,
they're trying to figure out if they can get away with it socially.
right, yeah, exactly. Well, then I know with like the whole robotic, automated like fry cook thing, their problem isn't a technological one; it's a price point one. They sit there
Mm,
and go, "There's a certain
mm,
cost of labor that once we cross that, it makes sense to the ROI on a robotic fry cooker becomes advantageous enough where we can pay it off in 5 years and it'll have a 10-year lifespan and we'll make X amount of money." But it only makes sense once you get to this cost of labor.
yeah.
And that's McDonald's argument against, well, not against necessarily, but their warning about raising the minimum wage too much is that specifically once you get to a certain level,
Huh.
we just won't do that. And
Yeah. Okay. Hmm. McDonald's. Yeah, they're kind of a. I don't know. We talked about this before. I guess they're an example to me of a company that blurs the line between being a tech company and a fast food company.
yeah,
Because on some degree, like they're probably one of the biggest robotics and automation companies in the world, if you
oh
think
yeah.
about it in that term.
Yeah,
But
automated manufacturing at the scale that they
yeah,
do it,
it's kind of
transportation,
crazy.
and yeah, just yeah, transportation and what's the word? Just yeah, just doing everything. It's nuts. They're a crazy company. They're a really cool company from that perspective.
That
Um,
makes food that's not great for you.
yeah,
But they're trying to
delicious,
change that.
but yeah, not particularly healthy. Uh, Yeah, oh, interesting stuff. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of a company that you don't normally think of as a tech company, that's not true. That's the exact opposite of true. Speaking of a tech company, you think of it as a tech company. Uh, Uber made an announcement this
Uber.
week that next month, one of their self-driving cars will pick up its first fare.
Dang.
Yeah, so the idea
Self-driving
is
cars is a thing.
yeah, so we've known for a couple of months now that Uber's been testing out self-driving cars and do in
Is it in
Detroit. Is that what
Oregon?
I said? No, I think it's Detroit. No, that can't be right.
Detroit? Pittsburgh.
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 It's Pittsburgh. It's Pittsburgh. Um,
Oh, that's where their offices are.
yeah. What movie's that from? Come on, man.
I know.
There we go.
The Oneaters.
Yeah. Doing that thing you do. Uh Yeah, so they it's gonna pick up its first customer. The idea is it sort of works like
Is there a driver in the car?
yes.
Okay.
So this is the deal. It's not legal for them to actually have a driverless car. It has to have a driver in the automated car. But the driver hopefully won't be driving very much. So the deal is it's going to be like it's going to be even worse than normal, because not only do they have the driver, who their job is to sit there and make sure the car doesn't kill anybody, most importantly, the person in the back, there's also going to be another person with a laptop and a notebook in the passenger seat taking notes on what the driver in the car is doing.
Awkward.
So you'll have more drivers than normal in your driverless car.
Perfect.
But yeah, so the we've known for a couple of months they've been testing these out in Pittsburgh. They're getting ready to pick up their first fare to incentivize people. You'll actually get the fare for free. It won't cost you nothing to take a ride in one of these incredibly dangerous, inhumane vehicles.
I love it. They're just doing testing, so like, might as well drive people around while we're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's if it's safe enough to throw a driver in it, it's got to be safe enough to throw a passenger in it. And it's great. It's definitely a PR stunt, because they are even pretty candid about the fact that there are bridges in Pittsburgh that the cars can't navigate themselves. Like, they know that that the driver has to take over from time to time. Mm-hmm. But overall, it's pretty cool. Like, this is the direction that they are going, and they're gonna get there.
Man, there's a part of me that's like, I always get torn. I'm like, on one hand, awesome, it's going to push others to get better. On the other hand, I'm like, we're splitting up our forces. I think of Beauty and the Beast.
You know what? You've intrigued me. I really want to know where you're going with this.
Arguably, one of the best movies of all time.
All right.
And maybe not even arguably. Maybe it just is. But one of the reasons why it was so great was Disney had the all-star team. They had all the best working on the same movie at the same time. By the way, that was very similar to Pixar when they did Toy Story and a bunch of their other ones until like 4 in, where then they split it up into 2 groups. But all that to say, they had everyone working on the same project at the same time, and it produced amazing results. And there's a part of me that's like, man, I kind of wish that was happening with the driverless cars, because it would be amazing to have all of these different super smart guys working on the same problem. But I also get the nice part about competition and splitting people up.
Yeah, I don't know.
For things like sports teams where the rules are pretty obvious,
yeah,
and straightforward, and everyone knows how to play. Yeah, I'm in. But this is kind of like, we're forging new ground. We're figuring out how to do this. Like, teamwork, guys.
Where I hope they get together is pushing legislation.
Ooh, that'd be nice.
Because I think that one's going to take a really coordinated effort to kind of get people over that hill. I had a really fascinating conversation just today, as a matter of fact, about a friend of mine was watching a car show on Netflix, not Top Gear. I feel like I
should know.
Car show on Netflix. Top 7 car shows on Netflix. Is it Overhauling? No. Street Customs? No.
Maybe.
American Muscle Car? Top Gear? Knight Rider? Miami Vice? I feel like we're completely. I don't remember what it's called. Yeah,
that's I get it. Miami Vice is a little bit of a stretch there.
Yeah, right. This is whatever. So the point is, it's kind of a Top Gear-esque show.
Okay.
But they did a competition between the Tesla and the new Dodge Spitfire, which is the 700 horsepower Charger. It's a beast of a car.
Sounds like a beast.
And they did a quarter mile in it, but the Tesla beat it. Yes.
Because we all drive a quarter mile.
I would say electric cars for the win. But they also did a big expose on the automated driving features of the Tesla, and we were talking about it, and like, he's a big car guy. Like, he watches car shows on Netflix. He likes cars. He likes driving. That's a big deal for him. And he was talking about it, and he was really fascinated by the idea of people how many people don't actually like driving, that they just stopped driving if it was in their power. And he was like, it's crazy to him because he's a big car guy, and just how many bad drivers there are on the road. He's like, I don't know, maybe it makes sense to get all this like automated car driving stuff going, and like, and Jen just relegate driving to tracks where you can like open up the cars and it's regulated for that, and you can actually have fun. Because there's a lot of parts of driving that aren't that much fun. And I was like, and he gave an example of how he was on the BART train in the Bay Area, rapid transit. He was on one of the trains to go to jury duty. It was like, it was actually really nice, because it was like you get on the you get on the train takes you there. It's like 3 blocks, you're there, and it goes, I can kind of get used to that idea of not having to think about driving at all. I was like, yeah, and it gets even better because like you don't even have that three block walk with your automated cars. Like it'll drop you off at the steps of wherever you're going. You'll go do your thing for the day, and it'll park itself. And then when it's time to go, you just hit the button. It's time to go. Car will swing back around and pick you up, and you just hop in your car and drive off, and you're good for the day. And he was like, yeah, seriously, that's like a great idea, because no matter how much you like driving, nobody likes parking. And I was like, exactly. And then I went a step further and was like, and just imagine, what if instead of like park my car button, you just flip it into Uber mode, and it goes and makes money for you while you're doing your thing at jury duty for the day. And he was like, oh my gosh, like it just blew his mind. Like that's such a good idea. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of where everybody wants to go. Like that's the point of this. And it's yeah, I see Uber's strategy here being a really good one, especially because I think they're going to work out with their whole building their own cars is they want to have a fleet of cars because they think that there's a lot of money there, and I think they're right. But if they can set up an ecosystem where your self-driving car, whether you're Ford or Google or Tesla or whatever, can join their fleet while you're not there, that'd be pretty cool.
And did you see that Ford actually announced that by 2021, they're going to have an autonomous car without a steering wheel or pedals, and they're going to set up an Uber type of thing as well.
Right. That's really happening. That's not Google doing it. That's not like when Google does
it. We'll see. I'm a little dubious of it. I mean, I get the autonomous car thing, but to have them say, and we're going to set up our own Uber thing.
Well, they already have they signed a huge deal with Lyft.
Oh, I know, but we'll see. I
see what you're saying, but I guess what my point is, like, from a manufacturing, like from a tech perspective, the fact that Google has made autonomous cars isn't shocking. From a tech perspective, the fact that Uber is figuring out how to set up this, like, autonomous car ride sharing isn't shocking. What's shocking to me is when, like, an actual car manufacturer goes into full scale manufacturing of cars without driver wheels or pedals. This isn't what Tesla's doing, which is like a halfway there. No, Ford's just going full in. We're making full on autonomous cars. Autonomous driving, driverless cars, not drivers sitting in the car seat ready to take over. No, you can't drive this driverless cars, which is to me
they feel pretty good about the legislation.
You got this
piece as well. Legislative. Thank you. Oh my gosh. By the way, did you see the XKCD cartoon?
I did.
Previous ones where it was saying like, we're doing all our comparisons wrong, comparing driverless cars to humans. Like, actually, you need to compare them to horses.
Right. The bar is higher.
If you got drunk on your horse and fell asleep, it would just walk home. And if you tried to ride a horse into a tree, the horse could be like, no.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, that's what we should be judging against. Driverless cars. I think that's so awesome.
I liked how I think the best part is the description at the end. This car's got 200 horses under the hood and 3.5 in the computer.
Ooh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
we're headed there.
It's pretty, and there's definitely a truth there. Like it's, it comes back to the whole idea of for autonomous cars to take over, the bar shouldn't be, they're perfect. The bar should be they're better. And How do we? And I think we're really close, if not already there, in many, many, many different circumstances. So, how do we get that sweet, sweet self-driving car business going on? I really like it. But Uber, their bout of self-driving carness wasn't done for the week. They announced that they're teaming up with Volvo to actually do this, as they're gearing up to buy a fleet of self-driving cars. Well, who's going to build it for them? Turns out Volvo is the go-to option on this. And Volvo's they're a big competitor with Tesla on this type of technology. People who criticize Tesla's technology is not that cool will usually point out companies like Volvo as a perfect example of they've got self-braking. They have lane following. They have the ability to get onto a freeway, set autopilot, take your hands off the wheels, and it'll just do its thing for you. Like, they're pretty sophisticated in that way already. Did you ever see that video? This is years ago. Volvo was doing a demonstration of their automatic braking mechanism.
Uh-huh.
And they had a semi truck parked in front of bleachers where they had like all of their executives like sitting so that they could see this, and they remote controlled this car and drove it at like 70 miles per hour, just got it up to speed, and as fast as they could get it into this to the rear end of this semi so that it could show it stopping automatically in time and it just plows into it and shoots underneath it. I mean, that doesn't break at all.
Oops.
Yeah, it's really bad. Oh geez. But
yikes.
Yeah, I know, it's great. Person would have been dead. But their technology has gotten better since then. So Uber's teaming up with them.
They get worse.
Exactly. Literally. This is going to be a huge deal, it looks like, and if not the only, it's the biggest partner that they're going to have for now. But Uber also wanted to, they're not going to rely on the car companies to do all their automation for them. They bought a company that we actually talked about a couple of months ago called Otto. It was a startup they announced they were getting up and going, and their whole deal was they're a bunch of former Google employees who had been working with the automated car project, and they wanted to build retrofits for semis, and we talked about it at the time. The whole idea was, they wanted to be able to get at least these semis to be able to drive themselves on freeways so that people would only have to take over the last mile, and you could retrofit it to currently existing technology.
Hold a lot more sensors. Yeah,
exactly. So it seemed like a pretty good direction, and it turns out like Uber just bought them.
Agreed.
So they wanted all that brain power, and that's where they're going, and it's pretty cool.
Oh man.
And the last piece of this puzzle, though, I think is interesting, mostly because I was just there and used Uber a lot. But Massachusetts has decided that they're preparing for the ever-growing domination of Uber, and they announced a new tax.
Tax.
Yeah, this is really kind of an interesting thing. State and city governments have been trying to protect the taxi industry from rideshare service for a while. Massachusetts is taking an unusual route. Governor recently enacted a law that will charge ride-sharing services a 20-cent fee for subsidizing transportation infrastructure, 5 cents of which will go to the taxi industry.
What?
Yes. Every Lyft and Uber you hail will directly fund the taxis they're competing against.
That's the dumbest thing ever.
I know. Officials still have to hash out the finer details, such as how they'll collect the fee and spend it, but the legislation prevents companies from tacking it onto your fare, which is the dumbest. So they can't. I guess what it means is they legally can't say, because like if you look at how they struck like your bill for an Uber, they've got distance, they've got time, and then they've got a flat fee that they add all up, and that's your
Yeah.
cost. So if there's a lot of traffic, but you don't go very far, like just down the Las Vegas Strip, it's still really expensive.
Okay, I understand.
But that like fee is like a fixed fee. I guess they're not allowed to like put in another explicit, oh, and this 20 cents fee is paying for the taxis that you're not using. But it's like this is I don't want to get political, but the idea here is that the problem that they're running into is that the taxis are still pretty powerful in these areas, especially like in Boston and stuff. There's a lot of votes there, so they're just paying off the taxi companies at the cost of the ride sharing companies, because like they want to prevent stuff like picking up at airports or convention centers. They want to, Boston Taxis don't Operators Association would prefer an outright ban on any ride sharing firm that doesn't follow the same rules as taxis do, which is kind of it's their way of trying to prevent the
So now they can pick up at those other places. Okay.
So the idea here is that there were no regulations.
Wow, this is like a classic tie both hands behind your back and we're still going to beat you situation.
Pretty much. They're like, so what happens is obviously ride sharing started out a couple of years ago with no regulations. And then over the last couple of years, regulations have been put on them. Like there are huge stipulations about where you can pick up riders at the airport, who can, like Lyft can't pick up at Boston Logan International. Uber has to pick them up in a particular location because Uber has negotiated a contract with them. And the Boston Taxi Operators Association wants to put even more restrictions on ride sharing and more fees and more stuff like that to kind of level the playing field. So this is basically Uber's way of saying, fine, we'll pay you 20 cents or 5 cents a ride to buy off the union.
Wow.
To give them time.
Well, way to go, Charlie Baker, for messing that up.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
He's the governor, in case you didn't know that.
I appreciate that. You throwing that out there. Yeah, I don't know. Big week for Uber. Big week for self-driving cars.
Yeah, seriously, man. Oh, dude. Future.
I know.
Future's
it's happening, man.
Coming fast.
Yes, it is.
It's accelerating.
And it's coming on its own. Nobody's in the driver's seat.
Okay, I gotta get this going. Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome. Okay, cool. Very, very cool. Less cool, but I came to a revelation.
Yeah.
This week.
The Chiefs are gonna win it all. Okay.
Because I think like I'm gonna say it, and I'm hoping that I'll blow your mind. That's my hope.
All right.
So expectations, there they are. Just
they're set. Perfect.
All right. So and this was really where I think it is, and it's 2 articles, but it's really just one. So we've talked about this before, but Twitter is getting into the live streaming game, like
right?
Big time. And they signed a deal with the NFL.
Yes.
And one of the things that the point of this article was weird. The title was talking about Twitter is trying to bring their live streaming to Apple TV, and then it's like in a paragraph it mentions it in the middle of the sentence or the story. Like, that was a really weird headline.
Well, the headline is designed to get you to click on it. It
worked. Congratulations. Okay. Anyway, so they're doing this, and it was somewhere, and I can't even remember now because I was semi-disappointed by the article. But I came to this conclusion that because I saw another article that was talking about, hey, it's time for me to cut the cable cord. Like, online services are awesome. We're doing it, and this is it. Live streaming is the future. That's what companies are going to do. Not DVRing and not on-demand television. So that was the whole thing with sports, right? It's like, oh, we all gotta watch it live. And the big problem with DVR and on-demand is you don't get as many commercials, or when you do have a commercial, it seems like it's a really big deal. And but streaming online, companies and sports,
live streaming
live streaming specifically, yes, with replays afterwards, with commercials inserted, of course. But that's where we're headed, and it's a way for them to continue to command the commercials and to get the revenue dollars and get it distributed across all sorts of platforms. Am I right? It seems so obvious.
Yeah, I like it. I like that idea. I like that. I see. The question I would have is, okay, now imagine this, because have you watched Stranger Things yet?
No, not yet. It's on the list.
So good. So Stranger Things season 2 is going to be coming along, and anybody who's watched Stranger Things has liked it enough where they're kind of excited about the next season. I wonder if they could just call it like the debut of the next season is like, we're live streaming the first episode of Stranger Things. And like, obviously Netflix is kind of anti-commercial, but if like a Hulu were to do it, they could go in there and say like, oh, we're going to live stream the first opportunity to see this new episode of our cool TV show. We're gonna live stream it, which is just, we're gonna show it live, I guess. I mean, because that's what TV is, right? That's the whole point of this.
Yeah,
that's really funny. I wonder, because it's, from a practical perspective, it's literally the same thing. The only difference is what you call it. It's a live stream versus an on-demand stream.
It's totally where we're headed.
Versus, there's downloading, on-demand streaming, and then live streaming. I think you're right. I think what they've figured out, if anything, what they've figured out is that you can call it a live stream, and people think about it different. It puts it in a different place in their head, as opposed to, oh, it's just TV. Like, this is how TV works.
Well, it's this thing where you can start paying. You could turn it. We'll see, into a pay-per-view type of thing, where it's, oh, I want to watch this live stream. I'm going to pay for it, and maybe you get lifetime access. Maybe don't. I don't know. Like, I'll be honest. Some of the Olympic stuff, it would have been fun to watch, and I just haven't had time or whatever. Right. Or I don't have. No, that's not what I meant to say. I have had some time, but I don't have cable, and I'm not about to go get it. But if NBC was willing to charge a reasonable rate, like, I probably honestly would pay $15, I might even go up to $30 to watch all of the Olympic stuff on my computer, whatever device I want. Just one time pass. Boom. Give me all the Olympic video and live stream it, whatever. But give me the previous ones if I wanted to as well. Totally would be willing to do that. And they could do those kind of one-off types of things, just like the MLB Pass, because I think MLB is pretty good about doing that with their app. Other than they also have blackout stuff, so that's kind of dumb. But I don't know. It suddenly hit me where I went, this is where we're headed. It's this live streaming thing, and Twitter is obviously in a good position because it has the real-time conversation, and they could do the ads. If Twitter was super smart too, they would figure out how to get their stuff embedded inside of like a Hulu or a Netflix or something, because that would be pretty interesting too. And set it up where it's like, here's the most popular ones, but then here's also my friends that are watching and talking about it with me. And I don't know, there's some cool possibilities. That's where it's headed. I don't know. All of a sudden it hit me.
I wonder. To me, the only question is are they going to try to quote unquote live stream the first airing of stuff? Like, I know that's a big thing with the Game of Thrones when it comes out, and you got to be right there. You got to watch it, and they have the first airing of it on. You can watch it quote unquote live on HBO, which is funny because
now on the HBO app, can you then replay it whenever?
So yeah, you can. This is what is so great is like it plays at 8:00 at your local time is the first live streaming of it. And I don't live stream anything, quote unquote. I don't watch live TV. So I just watch it like on demand. And obviously we do the show like around 8:00. So I got in the habit of, well, it turns out that 8 o'clock here is 8 o'clock on the East Coast is 5 o'clock here, and it becomes available for on demand as soon as it airs on the East Coast. So all of my friends would wait till 8 o'clock to watch it, and I'd be like 5:15. Let's watch some Game of Thrones. Just watch it on demand.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I started telling everybody, and they all started doing that. They're like, that doesn't work. I'm pretty sure that doesn't work. I was like, well, I'm doing it, so clearly it works.
I don't have a VPN or proxy, so that's funny.
Yeah, it's but like I said, my only question is that going to become more of a thing where companies are going to be like, oh, this is an opportunity to be able to inject commercials either at the beginning or the end, so we're going to live stream the first airing of stuff. I think so. I agree.
I think Netflix too would be smart to get in on some of that. Like you said, when it first comes out, which I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter. But.
Well, and what would be great is that, like, especially with something like Game of Thrones, where there's always spoilers and everybody gets so excited about it and like angsty about it, and have a place where everybody could quote unquote live stream it together and talk about it like a football game. Because that's one of the biggest complaints is that everybody will watch Game of Thrones and then go on Facebook and do a status update of, oh my gosh, I can't believe such and such died, which I'm always like, you can't believe such and such died? They kill literally everybody. You shouldn't be surprised at this point.
But I've heard weird things about like Stranger Things heads in the opposite direction. So obviously I haven't watched it, but I hear it's only like 8 hours long. And like the problem is it's short and semi-problem. The issue, whatever, is that it's like 8 hours. And so you can pretty much binge watch it pretty easily. And so you don't actually talk about the individual things anymore. You tend to talk about it as it's an 8-hour movie, essentially.
Right.
You lose a lot of those small, like, I don't know, will they make it out? Is that strange or is it not? I have no idea what it's about. But anyways,
like, is that a stranger thing or a less stranger thing?
Strangest thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. But I'm like live streaming. That's where it's at, which is really, a form of broadcast.
Right. It's just a live broadcast. That's really interesting that you point that out about Stranger Things, because I forced myself to watch it in 4 segments over the course of like a week and a half, and so there was pondering and stuff, and it was funny because my girlfriend was over, and I was like, I heard the show's kind of good. I was listening to the Weekly Planet podcast, and they were just like raving about it. I was like, I've heard this is pretty good. We should watch the first episode, and she was like, this is creeping me out. I don't know. I'm really glad somebody's here to watch this with me, because I don't think I could watch this on my own. We watched the first 2 episodes, and then like I didn't watch it again for like a couple of days, and I was like, oh, she's busy. Like, I kind of want to watch it. I'll just be like, hey, Diana, do you mind if I like watched another episode of Stranger Things without you? She's like, I already finished it.
Yes.
I was like, oh gosh. Well, fine, I'll watch it on my own. But it's pretty good.
I don't mind.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But it's funny because I mean the nature of live streaming and how that works, I think the communal conversation is going to be a big thing, and having everybody watch at the same time really helps. And that's where I think somebody like Twitter is in a great position, because they're all about the communal conversation, short blips, and you start with sports. But I think, like you said, if you can kind of get that conversation going, what would be really smart for Hulu and Netflix is to either work Twitter into your service and like embed it as part of the process, or just create your own, and Netflix Twitter for Netflix. And
seriously, yeah.
It's actually the more I think about it, the more it's kind of surprising that Netflix hasn't done that, like a forum thing, because they've got the technology to do that. It's not like that would be hard for them.
Yeah, I would love to see like some sort of second screen thing, like Nintendo, honestly.
Yeah, that's like, I could see like a companion app. Like if you've got, you sign in, and if you've got a show playing on any device,
should know
the phone will automatically be like, oh, you're somebody's watching, I don't know, Voltron. Somebody else is watching Stranger
Which is a good
Things.
choice.
And which one do you want to talk about? And you can click on it and you can get all forum me up. Seriously, why doesn't so can we build that in? Did we just give away a great app idea, James? Did we do it again? I feel like there's an API for this somewhere. Oh my gosh. I think we might have just
Netflix is in Los Gatos. You could work there.
I could work there. It's pretty nice. It's nice. They're actually
it is pretty nice.
They're setting up new offices in a location that I used to work. They tore it down, built it up again. You know where that one like super nice gym is? It costs like $400 a month.
No.
In Los Gatos. That's ridiculous.
Shockingly, they didn't have enough patrons to stay open.
No. See, that's the thing. It's Los Gatos, so they do. It's like a castle. The place is so nice. I've gone. I remember going inside of it once and not knowing what I was doing, but it was like a cavernous, like giant facilities everywhere. Nothing was like, it was all like half empty, and you're like, but super nice equipment. And in retrospect, it feels like, well, like, how could they possibly keep open until you realize how much it costs to go there? And you're like, oh, that's right. They're basically, it's for your like super rich executives that are like, I don't want anybody around in my giant gym. But it's pretty nice. The life of the rich and powerful. It's like right across from you. Since you don't know where I'm talking about, this doesn't help the conversation at all. But the new Netflix facilities is right across from that.
Got it. Perfect. Dialed in. All right.
It's cool. Very cool. So Intel is trying not to be terrible anymore.
Oh my gosh, they're trying so hard.
They're shaking it up. I'll be honest, I'm kind of excited. I've been on the Intel's not such a disaster train for a year. They've been getting their act together. They've been doing more that I've been optimistic about, and I'd say this week you're really starting to see the fruition of a new direction that I think is very positive for the company.
You had a conference this last week, right?
Yes. So they made a bunch of announcements. It's a conference that's similar to the F8 conference or Google I/O or the one that Apple does.
Whatever that is. Yeah,
exactly. WWDC. So the first, we're gonna get this right out of the way because it's time for our weekly VR update.
Yes.
So Intel announced a new Project Alloy. And this thing's pretty cool. It's a wireless VR headset for merged reality. It kind of which just like kind of takes all the cool technologies and puts them into one package. And the idea being here that they're kind of trying to just jump to where we're going. What are we getting to? What are we getting at? And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like the HoloLens.
And I like that they didn't use HP's trademark trend of blended reality.
Yes, there we go.
They managed to tiptoe that one.
Exactly. Well, merged reality, I guess, is it mixed reality that the Magic Leap guys are going with? We're creating mixed reality. I think I finally figured out why people are excited
with the sources and start trademarking some of these things.
That'd be awesome. But what was the Magic Leap? That company that's raised like $1 billion and
who's full of themselves.
Yeah, I hate them. I think I finally figured out why people are excited about it.
Do you hate Magic Leap more or less than Snapchat? I'm just curious. I know. I think Magic Leap more, but
I think Magic Leap more because at this point, Snapchat like actually is like I dislike their CEO so much I can't.
That and I think you secretly think Snapchat's done, and so you're okay with.
Yeah. Well, and I just feel like they came by their $1 billion. Like there's actual value that they're adding that they've proven. Like I've said many times. Like I think the whole ephemeral message was a brilliant thing and very well done. Whereas Magic Leap is just. I don't even get it, and their CEO is so full of typeware. It's ridiculous. But they've gotten billions of dollars. So I think I figured it out. Basically what it is they have a lens that shoots lasers into your eyeballs. And because of how they produce light, when your eye focuses on different things, the things in the lens blur the way they would as though they were at some specific depth.
Okay.
Whereas with like VR or the HoloLens, those things blur out of focus as though the depth right in front of your face. So in order to get them to blur properly, as though you're like not focused on the thing right in front of your eye anymore, they have to artificially blur it, which is impossible. Like you just can't do that. So it's something that everything always kind of has an artificial sharpness to it or extra blur based on whether your eyes focused on it right up front or not, which allows a company, I guess what the selling point of Magic Leap is going to be is this like things where your eye focuses and where it sees depth is going to feel very natural. Now, why that means the company's worth $1 billion, I have no idea, because it doesn't seem that they've got anything that nobody else has in like world sensing or depth sensing or software. Like all they've got is these stupid lenses, but I guess, who am I to question them? It's not my money. I don't care. But anyways, back to Intel, a company I'm actually excited about. Basically, what they did was they took all of these different technologies, because you got like the Vive, you've got the Oculus, and they're just essentially motion trackers with like really high quality OLED screens in front of your eyeballs. Then you plug that into a computer, and they almost act like a monitor, where they give feedback about orientation, but they don't do any of the processing of the video image. Then you've got things like the Samsung Galaxy VR thing, and Google's whole Daydream project, which is you put all the computational power into the screen, into the motion tracker, and it all works really well, but that tends to be very low powered and it doesn't have great graphics. Then you've got the Windows HoloLens, which kind of blends the both, where it's got a bunch of processing on board. It's got really powerful depth sensing. It's a transparent screen, so you could see the world around you automatically, and so they can overlay things over top of the real world, but they can also stream from other devices wirelessly, like your Windows 10 device or your Xbox One, which allows just a lot of flexibility. So effectively, what the Project Alloy is it's using a couple of different technologies, but it's like a traditional VR where you're putting a screen in front of your eyeballs. It's got a lot of Intel chips in there, so it's a full-blown computational thing. It can do all the motion tracking in itself. It can do all the image generation in itself. It doesn't require an outside source, kind of like the smartphone stuff. So that it gives you a sense of what sort of graphics level we're talking about here. But it also goes further in how it senses the world around you. It uses their RealSense technology, which is similar to the Xbox Kinect, where it can do depth sensing. It's actually the technology that Microsoft didn't use for the Xbox for the Xbox Kinect. But it can also has a camera on it, so it can take images from the real world, overlay virtual images on that world because it understands everything in the depth field, and then puts it up to your eyeballs right away. And this is just kind of there moving forward. The cool part about this to me is Intel is going to be really good at making high power, like high performance, low energy consumption chips for all of this. That's where they excel, is putting low power consumption and just doing a lot of cycles of processing. That's something that Samsung can't necessarily do, or Google can't necessarily do, because they don't control the silicon. They have to buy the screens. Intel has to buy the screens, but at this point, everybody's buying the screens, so there's pretty equal footing there. And they've spent a tremendous amount of money on this RealSense technology, trying to develop and grow this infrastructure for these depth sensing cameras, because they think that there's a real future there for that. And so they've really been pushing that, which is interesting because that follows up the next announcement that they made, where they have a RealSense. It's called Project Euclid. They really like these project names, and it's a RealSense module for robots. Basically, things cool. It's like it's like an entire computer um, built into this little device. It's based on Intel's RealSense perceptual computing technology. It's a small candy bar-sized stick that brings sensors to any robots. And Intel CEO Brian Krasnick during the company's keynote. It runs Linux and has an Atom processor, a RealSense camera, motion sensors, onboard communication capabilities, and detachable battery. Basically, it's meant to bring a bunch of things needed to build robotics into a small, self-contained PC. So, like a lot of projects, like robotic projects nowadays, will use like Raspberry Pi as the heart of it. All your computation will be going on there. But if you want sensors, if you want like an accelerometer, you want a gyroscope, you want a barometer, you want wireless, Wi-Fi or whatever. Like a lot of times you have to buy those things and integrate them separately. If you want cameras, if you want depth sensors, you have to buy those and integrate it separately. Intel's basically saying, look, we got this nice little self-contained thing that does all that for you. And it uses all of this RealSense technology. So you've got just inherent depth understanding that you can bring to your robot, which is pretty cool. It's going to be available in the first quarter of 2017. It uses current generation of Intel's RealSense camera, not the upcoming RealSense 400. So it's last generations, but still, that's pretty huge for the hobbyist and developer community. Just be able to jump in and have a really, really powerful heart of your robot and brain of your robot for understanding. Then at that point, it's all about take the brain, take all the sensing, and attach whatever other arms and muscles and electrical stuff that you want. So it's pretty exciting, and it's Intel, so it's a well manufactured package. It's not it's not an open circuit board. It looks nice, it works well, it's exciting. Only problem with a lot of this stuff is that it's expensive, which brings me to the Joule Dev Kit. Intel's new Joule system can help gadgets see and understand the world. So as part of bringing all of these different pieces together, they've introduced a module called Joule. This thing is a tiny board for developers designed to bring powerful computer vision technology to cheap and easy to make prototypes. So the idea here is it's sort of like it reminds me of not a Raspberry Pi, but the form factor of an Arduino, where it's a board, it's kind of open, it's got the Joule chip in it, and this thing is just packed with sensors and computational power. It's pretty impressive. Let me pull up what it comes with. The Intel Joule 570X model features a high-performance 64-bit 1.7 gigahertz quad-core Intel Atom processor with bursts up to 2.4 gigahertz, which is beastly for that form factor. It's got 4 gigs of RAM, which is insane for that. It has an Intel HD graphics with 4K video capture and display.
There you go.
Which is like, you're blowing my mind here, guys. It's got 802 Wi-Fi with a Bluetooth 4.1, so it's got the most advanced wireless communication, USB 3.0 with MPI, like all your different interface options. It's Linux-based OS is tailored for the Internet of Things and smart devices, and it's enhanced to support the Intel RealSense camera and libraries. It's just, yeah, it's a beast. It sounds so cool. It's like basically everything that I've just described to you, whether we're talking the Raspberry Pi or the Arduino or anything like that along those lines. This is basically Intel coming along and saying, look, these are cool, they're interesting, and they're very affordable. But if you want something that's like really powerful, then you're going to want to go with this. If you need some real computational horsepower, this is what you got to do. But you're not messing around because the thing costs $370.
Ooh, okay,
yeah,
okay.
Exactly. It's not a joke. But for a lot of projects, this makes great sense. If you need a full-blown computer with a lot of power and and just really sophisticated sensors, really sophisticated interfaces, this is the direction you want to go. This isn't a hobbyist learning how to and prototyping something that you can sell on Kickstarter. This is a prototyping board for industrial use, for companies that are going to be selling, products that cost thousands and tens of thousands of dollars, which is pretty cool. And to me, it's like, this is what I love seeing Intel do, where they introduce all sorts of different levels of these sorts of packages that just nobody else can build this. This is not something that the Raspberry Corporation could ever do.
Right.
This isn't something that Arduino could do, not at this scale, not with this sort of sophistication. There's pretty much only one company that has all the intellectual property to do the circuitry, to do the chip design, and the manufacturing capabilities to bring it to that form factor and that power consumption level. Like, this is where Intel is awesome. And so it's exciting to see that. They're also
for 370.
Oh, geez, I don't know. Probably sometime after I buy my later, exactly. Not right away.
VR headset.
Exactly.
I gotcha.
So there's two more things that we found out that Intel they didn't actually announce at the conference, but they were tangentially related. Number one, Intel, they're all about the USB-C headphone.
Really?
Yeah. They came out and said, look, there have been some limitations to USB that has made it so that USB headphones don't make much sense for mobile applications, but a lot of those things have been have been lessened. Number one, power consumption is a huge thing, I guess. With the 3.5 millimeter headphone jacks are very, very, very low power consumption, and you just couldn't get that with previous forms of USB. Whereas just the nature of the USB-C protocol, they're basically coming out and saying, hey, USB-C, it's right there. It's nominal, the difference between the power consumption of the USB versus the headphone jack. It's also thinner than the 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, which if you're building a super small mobile device and you're trying to cram every ounce, every nook and cranny with something, that's a big deal. Because number one, the thing already has a USB plug, so it's nice to not have to have an additional plug. But even if you only had one, it's still a smaller plug. So they're making the argument that for like your Walkman, it's going to make more sense to have it as a USB. But then the other thing that, like, another piece of this puzzle is like, okay, what can you do more than sound? Obviously, noise canceling headphones are a super expensive product. But one of the reasons why that is because in order to do noise canceling, what you have to do is essentially you have speakers on the headphone or very near the headphone that takes sound in, processes it, and creates the waveform in inverse and cancels so you have the sound coming through the headphone from the outside, and then the headphone produces an opposite waveform that cancels out that noise and makes it all silent, and then all that's left is the sound of the music coming in. Well, there's a lot of processing power that's needed to do that, that's either built directly into the headphones or into a separate processing block. And one of the reasons why your iPhone doesn't have noise canceling built into it is because the microphone, in order to get sound from your mic to the iPhone and back to your headphones, takes too long to convert it into a digital and in order to turn it into a digital signal, process it, create an inverse, add it to the music, and then send it back. It just doesn't work. Whereas what they're saying is with the USB-C, there's no reason to think it won't work. There's no reason to think that we can't just all of a sudden turn all headphones into noise canceling headphones using the microphone on your phones, which is pretty cool. And then they also said that just for even like beyond that, whether you're going into like video output, you can't do full HD video output with USB-C, but you can do video output in ways that you never could, like low scales, like low resolution stuff. And they're just like, look, guys, I know you like your 3.5 millimeter headphones, but they're super lame. Like they're just not that good. Trust us for a second. We're not doing this just to rip you off. They're actually better. Which
it's a combination.
Yeah, a little combination.
It's probably genuinely better. I get it.
Right. And so I say all this to say this is the argument that you'll probably hear somebody like me making on September 9th when Apple announces their next iPhone that doesn't have a headphone jack. And honestly, to me, I hadn't heard of this, and I think if Apple does this, I should think it would be pretty cool if they sat there and said, "Look, all headphones that work with our iPhones now have noise canceling if you plug them in.
That'd be pretty
Just
big deal.
build it in on the system level. There's noise canceling and that's only possible because we can monitor the microphone next to your headphones, and it gives us the ability to do that. It'd be a huge selling point, and I think a lot of people would feel like, whoa, you're gonna give me a pair of headphones that I can, like, earbuds that I can plug in and it'll just work? Okay, I'll allow it. So I think, in a lot of technologists are gonna be like, that's lame, you could still do it anyways, but whatever. I think those are the sorts of arguments you'll hear. Intel's helping them out a little bit with that. And then the last piece of this was a kind of a big deal announcement that they announced it, but they didn't want to make a big deal about it, which is Intel's going to start manufacturing ARM-based chips, which just a few
can't beat them, join them.
Pretty much, which just a few years ago, Intel was in negotiations with Apple to build Apple chips in Intel foundries, and Intel's stipulation was we'll build chips that you design. Like, Intel has never built chips other than chips that they've designed. Whereas like Samsung, the Taiwanese semiconductor manufacturing company, TSMC, those companies are called fabless manufacturers. So Apple would design a chip, then sends it to Samsung, sends it to TSMC, and those companies then make it at their foundries. Intel has only ever made Intel chips at Intel foundries. So it was a big deal that they were even talking to Apple about making Apple design chips at their foundries. But Intel's requirement, which ended up being too much for Apple, was you have to use some Intel intellectual property. Like, instead of using the ARM architecture, you have to use the x86, but you can put your own graphics cores, your own power consumption stuff into it. And Apple said, heck no. And
is heck no techno.
Exactly. They I already did it once this show, so I was trying to.
All right, fair enough.
But they went back to so they didn't use Intel, they used Samsung and TSMC, but Intel has now announced that, in a big change, like you said, if you can't beat them, join them. They are going to open up their foundries to other fabless manufacturer. So basically say companies can come in, whoever they negotiate with can use Intel's processes. Why this is a huge deal is because Samsung and TSMC are the most competitive manufacturers to Intel in the world. And they're at 14 nanometer processes. Intel's at 11, which is a lot smaller at the scale we're talking about. Power consumption is inherently lower. Speeds are inherently faster when you get to that size. And so you can use literally the exact same processor design, make it in an Intel fab, and it will be smaller, use less electricity, and run faster, which is a pretty big deal.
Pretty good
so
combo.
Yeah, and since chip designs don't stay stagnant, they'll keep developing more and more and more. And yes, this will be huge for whoever gets there. It's too late for Apple to do it for this generation of chips. It's probably too late for Apple to do it before 2019. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if you saw Apple team up with Intel before the end of the decade to build chips for your iPhones and iPads.
Yeah, probably be seeing them in a bunch of Android devices too.
I agree. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Awesome. Ton of stuff going on. So, shifting gears dramatically here.
Yeah, I'd say.
We're going to talk about dishwashers for half a second. What?
I'm excited. Do you own a dishwasher at your new place?
Yes, I
Garbage
do.
disposal.
The layout is not very good, but yes, we also have a garbage disposal. It's actually a really nice garbage disposal. It's super quiet. I
Okay.
almost replaced it, but it turned out it was the light switch that was busted instead. So it was an easy fix.
Nice.
Yeah, but it turns out that the dishwashers are not actually like, I don't want to say it. They're popular. They're in 75% of American households, but they're nowhere near refrigerators and microwaves, which are over 95% each.
Right.
Do you have a dishwasher in your place?
Sort of. We have a dishwasher. It just doesn't work.
Oh. And it's interesting you don't feel the need to go out and replace it. And like if your refrigerator broke,
Yeah.
you'd make it a day.
Right.
You'd be freaking out the entire time.
Exactly. Is your refrigerator running?
You better go catch it.
There was something on Reddit, and it was a political slogan. Like it looked like it was designed for a bumper sticker, and I'm gonna look it up.
Okay. But yeah, dishwashers are kind of a it's interesting. The argument was that they're it represents a technology that was supposed to take off and help revolutionize the home, and it just never really did. And I think you're going to find that it will work as a good analogy for a lot of other tech stuff that we're talking about. So some examples here is it you can measure the popularity of a product by its tech adoption. And so one of the things that you can do is you look at the time that it takes a product to get from 5 to 50%. Does that make sense? So you don't necessarily start at 0 because that first 5% it can be a little weird. But once you hit 5 to 50, like how long does it take? So let's see here. Some examples is for the TV, it took 5 years for it to go from 5 to 50.
Okay.
For the refrigerator, it took a little bit over a decade.
All right.
For the dishwasher, it took almost 40 years to happen.
40 years.
And it's still only at 75%. And that, by the way, was in 1997 that it crossed the 50% mark.
Wow. It really isn't that. I mean, we grew up without one for the longest time.
Yeah. And we thought we were weird, but it turns out no, we were actually normal.
Almost really 50, fascinating.
Almost just half the other country, if you thinking about when we flipped the switch.
That's crazy. Why? Huh.
Let's see here. In 1971, 18% of households had an automatic dishwasher. 83% had refrigerators, and 71% had washing machines. So the dishwasher, the lowly dishwasher, is a neglected tech that just doesn't seem to take off like you would expect.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because it's like I'm not even sure why, but I have never felt the need to have a dishwasher. I just like, and maybe it's because I'm an unmarried dude that, single, that I don't have a lot of dishes to do. And so it's like, oh, I'll just make it work. It's fine. But it's,
I think the other issue with it is like with a clothes washer, you toss your clothes in, throw the soap in, hit the go button, and walk away.
Right.
Like a dishwasher, you shouldn't do that.
Right.
You actually have to kind of do the pre-wash thing. You have to set them in. Got to play a little Tetris. And then, I don't know about what yours used to work, but mine, like our new one, it's like a 90-minute cycle. I'm like, what in the world is it doing for an hour and a half?
Right.
Like this, honestly, look, I get 45 minutes. I'd prefer to see half an hour.
Yeah.
Going, at least it's not me doing it, I guess, but how much water am I using right now?
Right, yeah. I just don't know about that. That's a fascinating, because it's hard for me to even try to come up with like an explanation for it because I'm just to me, it just seems so natural to be like, no, I don't need to do it. Like, and there's all sorts of problems with dishwashers, right? They you don't get with like a clothes washer machine. Like, number one, when they dry and there's soap scum on your plates and stuff, and they don't seem clean, drives me nuts. Like, it's just like I know they're
More
clean,
commentary on the soap you use, but yeah,
fair enough, but I never have that problem with my clothes.
fair enough. Okay, all right.
Or
all
I
right.
very, very rarely take my clothes out of the dryer and go, well, this isn't clean. Like, it's an oil stain or it smells bad still or something. And usually another wash or
It's
like
an exception. Yeah,
exactly. Whereas with a lot of times with washing machines, it feels like it's the rule. Like
dishwasher.
you said, that's right. There's also the pre-work element, I think, is a big thing too. It's the fact that
Well, it's funny they showed this ad. It was the dream dishwasher in 1962, and it was this idea of a conveyor belt that you just are putting your dishes on, and it kind of magically goes in and then pops out clean the other side. And it was
right.
like that's kind of what we were promised in 1962, and like in some ways, it's a failed technology.
It really is. Well, even industrial dishwashers, where I don't know if you've ever done a dishwashing job
awesome.
before. They are awesome. Like when I was in college.
That's what I want. They're so fast, but
Well, you're right, but there's a caveat here because it's like so. When I was in college, my fraternity had we had our own kitchen and our own chef, which was really cool. But a couple of us had to be the hashers. We had to do all the cleaning and everything. And at the time, I was the president, and so I volunteered nobly to serve my fraternity. Also, I was broke, and they were willing to pay me $10 an hour to do it. So it was like, yeah. It was ridiculous though, because the girls, all the sororities, they had male hashers. They would hire fraternity men to go into their house and do all their dishes and serve all their food. Because we had to do it ourselves, which I think is a testament to how broke we were as a fraternity. But I which is once again, how did I end up having to do dishes for my brothers, whereas my brothers ended up doing dishes for the girls? Like, this is ridiculous. How did I get the short end of the stick on this? Anyways, but there was a huge amount of work involved in cleaning, rinsing, and preparing the dishes to go into the really fast dishwasher. And if you did it wrong, like, it didn't work. And you were using kind of heinous chemicals, it felt like, for disinfecting and cleaning.
Yeah, that's true.
And there was like the amount of work involved in the industrial dishwashers is still really high. It's a horrible job. That's always like the lowest rung job, right? The dishwasher, that's the person who has, and yet they're not sitting there scrubbing it. Their whole like cleaning it by hand. Their job is to throw it into the automated machine that will wash it for them. And yet that's the lowest rung job, partly because it's simple. It doesn't require a lot of skills, but also partly because it's horrible.
Right.
And I wonder if it's just the nature of the process where it's like, by definition, clothes, most of the time, we don't want to stain it. We don't want to do whatever. So we take care of our clothes. So our clothes have a little bit of sweat, a little bit of grime on them when we throw them into the dishwasher or the washing machine generally. And so they're already kind of clean. They're like a rinsed bowl getting thrown into the dishwasher. You're just doing a little disinfecting, putting a little soap on it, getting rid of the last layer of scum. Whereas because of the nature of food and dishes come fully soiled before they get to the dishwasher. And then you've got the back end of it is like, I feel like I've already rinsed it. I feel like I've already done 90% of the work of cleaning it. All I'm going to do is throw a little soap on it by hand and then throw it in the washing rack. Like, I'm 90% of the way there. I feel like by the time I get to that point, It's not that much worse. And I cleaned it. I know how clean it is. I don't feel like there's some black magic voodoo going on inside the machine where it's like spraying water and steam and stuff. And like, what's the soap doing? And did the bowl flip upside down, or was something in the way? Like, I don't like dishwashers, man. I get it.
It's a failed tech.
It's a completely failed tech. You know what the answer is?
No.
This is going to be like, you will know that the robotic revolution is over when we have the first really successful dishwashers. Where They're just they're articulated arms in water in scrubbing units, and they can use, you just give it anything and it will clean it. Any shape, any material. Wood, you can't dishwash wood because the wood soaks up too much water. It's bad for the grain. You got to wash it by hand. Things that once there's a robot that can do all of your dishes as though it's washing it by hand because it has the processing power to be able to understand what it is that it's picking up and doing. It's got the articulation and the mechanical ability, like at an affordable enough price to be able to do it. It can sense for cleanness. I don't know, like use lasers or something. Blast it with UV light. I feel like yeah, it's completely failed. And I feel like the answer, I don't feel like there's like a middle ground answer there either for between how can we quicken this? How can we automate this in a better way? I feel like you need to go to full on highly automated, like relegated to the most advanced factories type of automation right now to do dishwashing at an automatic level. I can't even think. You know, it's funny. I will spend the next week actively trying to come up with better ideas, trying to see if there's a solution. Just because, at like first blush, a lot of times when I talk about automation, like I come up with like 5 different things. Like you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. Like this is where the technology goes. Whereas with like dishwashing, I can't think of anything. I dishwash all the time, so it's not like it's a process I'm unfamiliar with.
Right.
Which might be the problem. You know, somebody who's really into cooking hamburgers might and knows all the intricacies of making the meat and making the bread might be the exact wrong person to ask to automate the hamburger manufacturing process because they're too into the nuances to be able to step back and say, how can we have a robot do
Curse
this?
of knowledge.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting problem.
Anyways, there you go.
How much time do we have left?
10-15.
Okay. Cool. Then I'll do these stories because they're kind of interesting. So you really liked this a couple of months ago. The Airlander 10, aka the Flying Butt, took flight this week.
Cool.
Yeah, the Flying Bum.
It's so big.
It's enormous. The Airlander 10, for those of you who don't remember, is the world's largest aircraft and also happens to look like a human butt from certain angles. It's taking flight for the first time. It's a helium-filled blimp with a bunch of different large fans on it and wings. It's awesome. It's a massive 302 feet long, filled with helium. And because helium leaks at a very slow rate, around 10% per year without holes, it's capable of remaining in flight up to 3 weeks at a time. Wow. The aircraft has not yet been tested for commercial use, but it's capable of carrying 10 metric tons of cargo, a far heavier load than a conventional aircraft can manage using less fuel. 10 metric tons, 2 big. Pounds. 2 pounds is that? I was going to say, I knew that wasn't 2,000 or 20,000 pounds. It's 22,000 pounds of stuff.
Okay. So 11 tons, US tons.
Yes. Correct.
Dude, that's sweet. Okay, so they did their test flight or whatever, and it's successful.
Yeah, met all of the test objectives, which include safe takeoff, landing, and a series of gentle turns at increasing speed. It flew to a height of 500 feet and reached a speed of 35 knots during the course of its 19-minute ride, which ended just before sunset.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like it. I'm a big fan of blimps, so I'm a big fan of this
helium butt.
Exactly. So it looks awesome. Yeah.
When do they think it'll be commercially ready to go? Did it say?
Let's see here. HAV plans to design an aircraft that can carry 5 times more weight than the Airlander 10 by 2020, according to ABC. No, it doesn't say.
Where does one land a giant butt-shaped helium tank? Anywhere flattish will do, is the answer.
Yeah, which is kind of, I mean, that's one of the big selling points is that it doesn't need a full runway because it's, a blimp.
Yeah.
So it can do pretty aggressive takeoffs and landings. Yeah, that's cool. I'd love to see a bunch of these flying around doing all sorts of cool stuff. If you go to the website, we'll link this article, and they actually have a video of the Airlander 10 doing its basically somewhat vertical takeoff. I mean, for a vehicle that large, it's crazy how it just sort of like it kind of picks up and all of a sudden it's off the ground and flying. That's so awesome. I want one.
Speaking of awesome, GoldenEye 007, an awesome video game, has an unofficial multiplayer remake with modern graphics for free.
Ooh, hey now, what do I need? Do I need my Nintendo 64, the classic gaming system that it was?
No, you don't actually. You can download it onto a computer and play right on that. So we will have a link to it, and yeah, you'll be able to go download it. I haven't checked to see if it's available for Mac. Probably just PC is my guess. But which is what I plan to put it on. Oh, here we go. Recommended specs. Windows XP.
All right, that's nice.
4 gigabytes of RAM.
That's not bad.
And yeah, that's about it. Okay.
Really? It's awesome. I wonder. Unfortunately, there's no single player mode. I'm not surprised. I wonder how
it's multiplayer.
Ooh. I wonder if all they did was. I wonder if they updated any of the mechanics of the game at all, or if they just went through and updated the overhauled visuals. Is one of the catchphrases or one of the things that it says.
I think it was mostly overhaul of visuals. It looks good.
Yeah, and just watching them play, it does seem very GoldenEye-esque. There's a bit of ragdoll physics, which makes me wonder. I can't remember what it was like when. Oh my gosh, it's been so long since I played this game. This does look good.
If I had a TV, fun. I would play it tonight. But
I love. Oh my gosh, they did the slappers.
Dude, some blood comes off when you do the slapper.
I know. 10 game modes. Please tell me you got DK mode.
Yes.
This is a brutal game. That's a fun game. You remember back when we did that story with where the Nintendo creator, wanted at the end of the game during the credits, James Bond would go to the hospital where everybody would still be alive, and like it was just what a weird company. Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's really cool. Okay, so my last story for today. China has launched a satellite that is designed for hack-proof communications. It's kind of interesting. It uses quantum technology. So do you know how traditional encryption works?
You take a number, you scramble it, then you unscramble it on the other side. Somehow there's a key that tells you how you scrambled it.
Exactly. So this idea is there are certain equations that are really easy to solve one way and hard to solve another way. For example, it's really easy if you have a solved Sudoku problem, it's really easy to check it. But if you have an unsolved Sudoku problem, it's really hard to complete it from a computational perspective. One is trivial, the other is far from it. There's a lot of problems like that and of different forms, and that's an analogous to how encryption works. It's basically if you have the actual number that you're scrambling everything by, it's really easy to work it backwards. But if you don't, it's really, really hard. And this is where this key, like the idea of, the FBI wanted Apple to unlock the iPhone. What they literally wanted Apple to do is to create the key to find that number that would allow them to go in and decrypt all of this information. How you pass that key around, how it exists, there's this idea of a public key that allows you to encrypt it, but it requires a private key to decrypt it, which allows for you to send me an encrypted message that only I can decrypt. There's a bunch of different like systems for doing this, but ultimately all of these problems, they are solvable. That is one of the problems with like these sorts of encryption, is that ultimately you can, given enough time and computational power, you can reverse engineer the key that's used to encrypt it and then decrypt everything.
Okay.
The bigger the key, the more bits
More
involved in the
computational
key.
power.
Yeah, the longer it takes, but the more computational power you have, the easier it is. And with the advent of quantum computers, which seem to be coming faster than anybody realized was going to happen, there's going to be a steep drop off on how effective that traditional sort of encryption works. So scientists and computer technologists have come up with a system for quantum encryption, and the idea is that when you have photons, you have they have a couple of different polarized states, and those happen at a quantum level, whether they're up and down, left, right, or at different diagonals. And then using different polarizers, you can kind of measure what the polarization of these different photons are at. And actually, I was watching a YouTube video by Physics Girl, where she explained kind of how it works with photonic light and stuff. And as far as we knew, the ability to transmit and this sort of quantum information so that you can encrypt using this quantum data. So the idea being here that that quantum data, these photons and the state that they're in, you can use that. You can send that key, and you can use that key to encrypt data. And because it's truly randomized, like by the nature of physics, it's not something you can work back. It's not something you can decrypt. So it's effectively hack proof. You can't put enough computational power to it because there's no pattern that it follows that you can work to use to decrypt. Which is where the real advantage of that sort of technology comes from an encryption perspective. The other really nice part about it is during the transmission process of the quantum information from the sender to the receiver, if somebody interrupts it and measures it, due to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, you actually change the state of the quantum. You change the quantum state in that process. And so if for some reason there isn't a matching on both ends, and there's certain mathematic models you can use to determine if there was an intruder, you can determine if your quantum information was sniffed, which means that you know if somebody else was there reading the information in the middle of it. So it's really robust. The biggest problem that we've had is that researchers have only been able to get it to work up to like a couple hundred kilometers, which doesn't really work well as a global communication system for encrypted data.
That's not great.
Theoretically, it's there, but who knows? Well, China, I guess, doing their crazy China thing, decided they'd figured it out. So they launched a satellite this week that has one of these quantum encryptors on it. The idea being you put it into space and it can communicate over long distances all around the world. And with a network of these satellites, you could be sending the quantum encryption keys everywhere that they need to be, quantumly encrypt the data, and then the data can transmit over normal means, but the NSA or whoever couldn't, or Russia or Great Britain, they wouldn't be able to read that information because it would be truly and welly encrypted by this cool satellite. So I'm sure if it works, we will be working feverishly to figure out how they did it, and probably be setting up our own satellites, unless we already have, and we just don't know about it because that secret information is encrypted, which would be nice. Be encouraging.
Interesting.
It's the future of encryption, man.
Oh,
I'm sure Google will be on it soon enough.
Like you said, it's coming fast.
Yeah. Quantum stuff's interesting. It really is. It's mind-blowing.
Is China hiring people?
It's trying to, yeah.
Just trying to help you out. Keep your options open.
I appreciate it.
Very cool. Very cool. Lots of good tech stuff. All right. I think we're ready to call it here. So, everybody, thank you for joining us. And thank you so much for listening to episode 250. Numbers were, but that's okay. Don't forget, you can check out all the show notes with all the links at furlorose.com/256. And if you'd like to get the show notes sent directly to you, we'll gladly email them to you. All you got to do is go to the webpage and sign up, and you can get those. And then finally, this podcast is supported by listeners just like you. So if you'd like to contribute, we have 4 different levels. You can be a fanboy, a nerd, junkie, or a maven, and they each have their own levels of reward, which is pretty sweet. And so again, just check out furlorose.com for all of that information. I am James Furlo. My 30-year-old brother is Matthew Furlo. And so next time. Oh my gosh, I just cut off the music. How bad is that? I don't even know how fast I can get back to it. Well, you guys know what I mean. See you later.